Hey everyone, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Going to do a little retrospective review of a cartoon from the 2000s that became a big hit in my family. I think it's a really solid comedy cartoon, and I don't know that it gets as much love, as much attention as it should get. Overshadowed by some bigger shows, but very worthy of a watch if you've never seen it, or maybe a rewatch if you saw it 20 years ago. It's actually this year technically a vintage cartoon, and I'm talking about Dave the Barbarian. So it's a very simple story. It's about Dave the Barbarian, who's, huge, muscular guy, but a bit of a wimp. Voiced by Danny Cooksey, who a lot of us Gen Xers will remember playing Lil Sam on Diff'rent Strokes. Came in the later seasons with Dixie. Oh, I can't think of that actress's name. She was on Designing Women. Anyways, who does a great job with the character. He's sort of, it's a pretty obvious sort of a character, the big muscular guy who turns out to be very sensitive and artistic, and he, really doesn't like violence, and he's afraid of everything. But done very well here. We also have his sisters, Fang and Candy. Candy is a princess, voiced by Erica Luttrell. Very, very well voiced. She's a teenager, a little bit maybe of a Valley Girl, maybe not quite, honestly. I grew up during Valley Girl days. They went to an extreme. They don't go to an extreme in this, but she's teenage barbarian princess who has been left in charge and would really rather be shopping, talking with friends, hanging out, all that kind of good stuff. Fang, on the other hand, often referred to as a chimp, to which she will retort, not a monkey, is really the most barbarian of the barbarian family when you get right down to it. She's, she likes to kick some butt. Voiced by Tress MacNeille, probably best known for Babs Bunny on Tiny Toons. She did Dot on Animaniacs, and she's awesome. Always a big fan of hers. We have two characters who don't really show up much in the show, but are very key to it. It is Mom and Dad, the king and queen of Udragoth. This is their brood, and they're sort of important to the overall setting of the show. We also have Faffy, which I always assume is short for Fafner. He is a little weird dragon. Doesn't really talk. Voiced by Frank Welker, who is obviously a legend in cartoon voices and often does non-speaking roles, weird noises, I guess you could say. So Faffy's kind of weird and gross. We also have Uncle Oswidge, who is voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. Does a lot of villain voices here. He gets to be, funny and not so evil. Oswidge is sort of a sorcerer to an extent. We have Lula, voiced by the great Estelle Harris, who is the magic sword owned by Dave, who really often loses her patience with him. I think she loves him deep down, but Dave's a little tough to handle sometimes. And okay, maybe not really a major or minor character exactly, shows up from time to time, but one of the favorites in my family is Twinkle the Marvel Horse, voiced by Jeff Bennett. This is Candy's horse. He can fly, he's sparkly, he's rainbowy, and he has a voice similar to Christopher Walken, and he's very dark, and he's very deep whenever he shows up. Candy, you left me alone for a very long time. I've grown bitter. Anyways, very funny character, and it gives you a little insight into the kind of comedy behind this show. So basically, these are our heroes who must, defend their homeland against all manner of evil, except they're not really very good at it. And that's fine, because this is not a show that's really about plot. Their home, Udragoth, as you can see, it's really nice. It is some kingdom somewhere, one presumes, in Europe. And mom and dad, the king and queen, have gone on vacation and out to fight evil and all sorts of good stuff like that, like a barbarian king and queen should do. They've left Candy in charge, and they've left Oswald in charge of, the kids. And that's maybe not the best plan in the world. And so over the course of the series, they are beset by many evils, including Ned, a man from the future, voiced by Richard Stephen Horvitz. Yeah, I'm looking at notes. I'm old. I can't remember all these names, for crying out loud. We have this Quasmir, who's this Udragothian god of freshly laundered trousers, overused punctuation. I think he's initially introduced as a god of destruction. He goes on a terrible rampage, voiced by Michael McShane. He's got mommy issues, and he's a complicated, not little guy. He's a complicated big guy. We got Malsquando, voiced by Rob Paulson, who is an evil sorcerer who went to school with Uncle Oswald. And, let's just say Oswald actually was a janitor, I think, at the school. And Malsquando was actually a student and passed. Anyways, Princess Irma Plotz, voiced by Melissa Rivers. Her mother is Queen Zonthara, voiced by Joan Rivers. And she's an evil sorceress sort of princess. And her mother, her dad was good, and her mom's evil. So she's only half evil. And her mom's always trying to, get her more evil, trying to give her tips on how to be a real, truly evil princess. But the most important villain of all on Dave the Barbarian is the Dark Lord Chuckles, the silly piggy, voiced by Paul Rugg, and easily shows up the most and easily the most fun villain on the show. He's rather unhinged. He wants to conquer Udragoth. Who knows why? But it's not just villains on the show. They also have to deal with Dave and his artistic ambitions. They have to deal with Dave's love life. Yes, he and the evil princess had a thing, and it didn't quite work out. She just couldn't be good, and he just couldn't be evil. There are various visiting celebrities of a sort. This one in particular is a sort of barbarian that all the guys dig because she's huge, and that creates a sense in Candy of just not being good enough, not getting enough attention, which goes to a crazy place. There's, Dave trying to, rule for a while and coming up with a lot of bad, stupid laws, public service announcements, a lot of shopping, which does get them into quite a bit of trouble. Agents. Well, okay, that's obviously a silly piggy in disguise, but still also an agent. Angry crowds. You get the idea. And though the villains are mighty and their plots are impressive and the heroes are just not that bright, good triumphs in the end. And what you have here with this cartoon, it's all about getting the laughs. It's all about gags. The plots really don't matter. Each episode, and there are 21 of them, it was basically a one-season wonder, is divided into two different stories. It is a lot of rapid-fire gags. It's satire. It's bad puns. It's a lot of asides. It's goofy enough for kids to be laughing at it. It's got enough smart little bits like the horse who sounds like Christopher Walken to probably entertain adults. At least I was entertained back, 20 years ago. I was in my 30s. I mean, in your 30s is not even really that young in a way, right? And that was 20 years ago. We always had a lot of fun watching this on the Disney Channel at the time. I would compare, you could sort of compare the humor to Simpsons, to Futurama, kind of, a wry sense of humor. You get the idea. But those are a little more biting and a little more cutting. And I would say the sort of version of those cartoons that was more for kids, and probably the best example of it, is SpongeBob SquarePants. And I think you could say that Dave the Barbarian has a fair amount in common with SpongeBob. I think it's a little higher energy, which is pretty typical of the Disney Channel of that period. I was a little kid. I watched a lot of Disney Channel in that period. A lot. There are a lot of millennials who are amazed at how much I happen to know about Wizards of Waverly Place and Hannah Montana. I know so much more about those shows than I really should. Disney always has this up energy sort of thing, and you get that with Dave the Barbarian for sure. But it's really, really very funny. It was created by Doug Langdale, who did a lot of work with Disney Channel. Dave Filoni, actually, his name shows up a little bit. I know a lot of people really dig the work that he did with some of the Star Wars stuff. But it's a very funny cartoon. It's very quick, and I've been rewatching the episodes here the last couple 3 weeks, and they really hold up well. 20 years hasn't done anything to dampen it because they are rapid fire, very funny. It's that kind of comedy that's both, smart and stupid at the same time, kind of like you would get from, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It works on both those levels. And so I think it could hit a broad audience. Now, why it only got 21 episodes, I don't know. The release schedule that I found was a little bit odd and might have been a problem for it. Might have kept it from getting a bigger reach. Maybe being on the Disney Channel kept it from getting a bigger reach. I don't think there's any company that's better at sabotaging a good thing than the modern Disney company. I mean, it's like they work at it. It's like their worst fear is when they find out they have something popular, and then they go into overdrive to find some way to ruin it. But 21 episodes, they're all funny. They're all worth watching. And I'll tell you what, the Simpsons Futurama style comedy, and that kind of comedy, just comedy in general, very important for kids. A lot of parents like to do the thing of playing classical music, like while the baby is still, in utero, playing classical music for children because it'll make them, I don't know, smarter, wiser, whatever. Well, smarter, I think, would be the thing. I would argue jazz would probably be even better than classical in some cases. Comedy will not make you smart. Exactly. But comedy has a big part in making you wise. It's about comparisons. It's about exaggerations. It's also really important for getting along with other human beings. I know folks who don't really have a sense of humor, and it's difficult for them to relate to others. If you have a good sense of humor, you can relate to other people. If you're actually funny yourself, it can do a lot for you in life. Parents, do not skimp on giving your children a good comedy education. Show them stuff that's genuinely funny, that's smart but also goofy. I mean, give them the whole range. And you get that somewhat from things like Simpsons and Futurama, but they're not necessarily appropriate for kids, for little kids especially, all the time. But then, you get stuff like SpongeBob and Dave the Barbarian, and they're sort of like the less cutting, angry versions of Simpsons and Futurama. And they're great for developing young minds and making kids who are going to probably have an easier time dealing with life, but dealing with other people as well. Great cartoons to find like that, because let's be honest, I look at a lot of the stuff that's out there now for little kids. It's like designed to basically keep your kid in a 4-year-old mindset for their entire life. It's very babyish entertainment. Really talks down to them. It's very cutesy. It's not making for smart, independent kids. Not like, for example, Sesame Street. Sesame Street was pretty hip, totally aimed at little kids, with a few little jokes for the grown-ups who had to watch it with them, but really aimed at little kids. But it was kind of hip. It was kind of cool in its way, and it was smart. And they knew that what you want to do with kids is not aim baby sort of stuff at them. You want to aim stuff just a little over their head so they kind of rise up to get it. That you don't want them to be kids their entire lives. You want them to grow up to be adults. Sesame Street, Electric Company, good shows for doing that kind of thing. They weren't cutesy. Now, Elmo comes along. I wouldn't let my kids watch Sesame Street now for anything, because Elmo's the exact opposite of that. Elmo is, we're going to keep you in an infantile mindset for the rest of your freaking life. You never talk baby talk to children when you're trying to teach them to speak and read intelligently. You just don't do that. Horrible character. And yeah, I know, maybe I'm upsetting some people. I don't care. Elmo is a horrible, horrible character for kids. But very lucrative. Very lucrative. And that's why he sticks around. Show your kids smarter stuff than that. Let their brains develop. Let them develop a little wisdom. Let them develop a smart sense of humor. You can do stuff like that with SpongeBob, with Dave the Barbarian. And when they get a little older, with the Simpsons, you know, maybe the older, I don't know about the new stuff. I haven't watched Simpsons. Here's what's amazing. I probably haven't watched Simpsons in more than 20 years. How crazy is that? That a show could be on that long, that I could spend 2 decades now watching it. So I can't tell you about the new one, but the old Simpsons, very smart, very funny. So is Futurama. That's great stuff for kids. Their minds need comedy. They really do. Comedy is not something to skimp on. So Dave the Barbarian, having a great time watching this show. It's very funny. It's very quick. Has stuff for kids, has stuff for adults. Only 21 episodes, sadly. You know, didn't have the lasting power of a SpongeBob SquarePants. On the other hand, it also didn't last so long that it kind of became, a pale imitation of itself. So it has that going for it. You know, it's kind of like the Jane Mansfield thing, or Marilyn Monroe, you know, passed away when they're still young and beautiful. That's Dave the Barbarian. Basically, the Marilyn Monroe of children's cartoons. Anyways, thumbs up to Dave the Barbarian. If you've never watched it, give it a look. You're going to find it out there somewhere. I've been seeing some episodes on YouTube. Might be on Disney Plus. I have no idea. But go take a look. See if you can find it. Great little cartoon. Well worth watching. Safe to put on in front of your kids. They'll probably enjoy it too. I know my daughter enjoyed it. Back in the day, she was like 5, 6, 7 years old at the time, right around in there. It was great for her. We're still laughing about it to this day. Go check out Dave the Barbarian. That'll do it for my review, my little retrospective today. If you enjoyed the video, please give a like, please subscribe, please share with a friend. If you have any comments, if you remember this show, if you like this show, let me know in the comments. If you hated this show, let me know in the comments. It's fine with me. You know, just don't call me any real dirty names and we'll get along. But until next video, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Try to have some fun, and I'll see you again in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.